to the family out there. Today, me and Moses, we want to come and do a presentation on the Coon caricature. A lot of people across YouTube has been using this term Coon like very loosely, and I think that we've taken this definition of Coon and we've used it in the wrong way. What's going on, Lil Neum? You know, Coon and Sambo and all these different terms. Not last year, a couple months ago, we did a live stream on my old channel, on the George Making One channel, where we really broke down Coon and Sambo and exactly what a Coon and Sambo was. Like we really got off into it, and I wanted to do. Peace be on Gail. I wanted to do this again because I called Moses. I said we need to get back at this again. I think that it's necessary because our people we're not enlightened to so many different things. We don't know our history. We don't know how we're being viewed. We just so off when it comes to so much stuff. And I'll spent a lot of times, me, Moses, Brother Taz, we spent a long time on these different platforms arguing with people that's just never going to get it. And I'm just tired of it. I want to really get back into teaching the history, get back into bringing people the information, the important information. What's up, Brandon L? So today we're going to have a real interesting live stream. Brother Moses, you want to come in and speak before we share the screen and get off into it?
Absolutely, and always honored to join, man. This conversation was powerful then. It's still going to continue to be powerful. The word is always thrown around haphazardly. It's used out of context. It's used to describe people, and it still tries to hold the same derogatory standard that they wanted to use it in. But that uneducated mind, man, if there's anything that we can do is to continue to deliver on that. And don't mind my dog in the background, y'all. Just rock with her. She's B1 as well. So we're going to continue to get it in, man. Hey, she don't like the police. She don't like nobody, man. She only rock with the family. And that's what we need to get back to. I mean, in order to free ourselves from this mind state that automatically wants to assume, that the worst for our brother, the worst for our sister, that wants to agree, there's a crime that happened that says, oh, well, what happened? We're going to have to continue to be powerful and be vigilant and keep giving them this information. So like always, bro, I'm always here for you, man. Let me continue this build. I'm gonna go back on mute while I try to find a couple of these postcards just so we can drive this message home.
Just make sure when I'm reading, whenever you want to jump in, because I might not be able to see you. Whenever you want to jump in, just jump right in, stop me, and just go in.
All right? Sir.
All right. Well, this article from the Jim Crow Museum is the Coon caricature, and this really breaks down and explains. This really breaks down and explains the Coon and what a Coon is. And we really have to really get off into these stories to really teach our people, what it is that they're saying. Because a lot of our people are making statements, but I don't think that we really understand what a Coon is, what a Sambo is, and I feel like we use it in the wrong place. And today, I'm gonna really explain it. This is not gonna be a long 2-hour live stream. This is gonna be, what's funny? I put I'm totally done in the title yesterday, and a bunch of people jumped on. I created this show 8:30 in the morning, and I put a picture of a black man praying with alligators biting his ass, and I gave people enough time to see it. But you notice when we come in and we're teaching, people ain't interested in the teaching. Aries, Brandon L. We want to complain about this Amber Geiger stuff. We want to complain. But when we come in and we start teaching the history to teach our people, people don't show up. It's like O'Shea was right. You want to complain, but you don't want to get the knowledge as to how we should be moving. You don't want to get the knowledge as to how we should be treating each other. This type of information gives you the proper protocol as to how we should view each other and as to how we should move and what we should demand from our black leadership. But y'all don't show up for it. Y'all don't want the information. You just want to complain. And this is why I kept saying, like, I'm done, because black people don't want white people to really stop being doubles. They just want you to stop calling them nigga to their face. So Skinny Boy, today, we're going to really break down what a coon is. I'm going to show you today what a coon is. So we're going to get right off it because we're not going to be here for 2 hours tonight like we was for the last one. Hour and 20 minutes at best. The Coon character is one of the most insulting of all anti-black characters. The name itself, an abbreviation of raccoon, is dehumanizing. as with Sambo, the Coon was portrayed as lazy, easily frightened, chronically idle, inarticulate buffoon. The Coon differed from the Sambo in subtle but important ways. Sambo was depicted as a perpetual child, not capable of living as an independent adult. The Coon acted childish, but he was an adult, albeit a good for little adult. Sambo was portrayed as a loyal and content servant. ABL, Brandon Tatum, I'm sorry. Sambo, I'm going to read that again. Sambo, see, y'all call people like these ABLs and Brandon Tatums and all these people coons. They're not coons. Sambo was portrayed as a loyal and content servant. Indeed, Sambo was offered as a defense for slavery and segregation. He had how bad could these institutions have been as the racialists if blacks were contented, even happy being servants? See, this is your Brandon Tatums and your black conservatives. These are your buffer Negroes. The Coon, although he often worked as a servant, was not happy with his status. He was simply too lazy or too cynical to attempt change to change his lowly position. Well, that sounds like these niggas in the street. They know that this man is the devil. They know that his system is evil, but they're not willing to come together to fight to get themselves out of it. They'll rather fight each other. They'd rather be cynical to each other. They'd rather come on YouTube all day and call each other names and battle with each other. So the very people you calling a coon is a Sambo, and we would represent, they would call us the coons because we beat up on each other, but we're not using any type of skill set or thought-provoking skills to get ourselves out of the situation. That's what a coon would be. A coon recognizes his status, but he's doing nothing about it. A Sambo uplifts the system, and he's a proud and content servant. The Coon, here we go. Also, by the 1900s, Sambo was identified with older, docile blacks who accepted Jim Crow laws and etiquette. Woo, wait. Whereas coons were increasingly identified with young, urban blacks who disrespected whites. Stated differently, the coon was a Sambo gone bad. So the people that we call coons, does that sound like a coon? We're using coons in the wrong way. This is how I know people be on YouTube talking and they don't know what they're talking about. This is why we have the arguments and why I got to bring this out to show you that you're using these terms wrong. The coon was increasingly identified with young urban blacks who disrespected whites, who didn't go along with the get along, as the Sambo would. The prototypical movie coon was Stepin Fetchit, the slow-talking, slow-walking, self-demeaning nitwit. It took his character almost a minute to say, "Eyes be catching my feet, Nas boss." Donald Bogle, 1994 cinema historian, land-based the Coon as played by Stepin Fetchit and others. Before his death, the Coon developed into the most blatantly degrading of all black stereotypes. The pure coons emerged as no-account niggers. Those unreliable, crazy, lazy, subhuman creatures. Good for nothing. I'm going somewhere with this because y'all got to really listen and pay attention. Subhuman creatures, good for nothing, more than eating watermelons, stealing chickens, shooting crap, or butchering the English language. So the coon would be the person that went against the status quo. The coon was the person that was not eager or energized to be a part of the system or learn the system or speak the proper vernacular in English. The coon was the person that was looked at as subhuman or lazy because he said, fuck your system, fuck your schools, fuck all that. He rebelled. This was the coon. The Sambo was the happy-go-lucky Negro. that wanted to be all the best he could be. And he was looked at by the dominant society as a civilized, white friendly, the buffer, the go-between. So when I do the coons wrong, I can use the Sambo the Sambo, as to say I'm not racist. So you got to really pay attention. So when they depict the coon as unreliable, crazy, lazy, subhuman creatures, that means that you're not able to civilize them in the manner where the dominant society will want to civilize them to make them white friendly. So we have to understand. We have to understand when we open up our mouth and speak. People say, "Oh man, that was a long time. You gotta let it go." When you don't understand history and you don't understand where you come from, when you walk in the room around vultures, you'll continue to make the same mistakes. You have to understand these terms. So when you call them these people coons, they're not coons. You're looked at as the coon because you're rebelling. You are the no account nigger. You are those that's unreliable. Because my brother Moses will tell you, if you're a person that want to think for yourself, or if you're a person that don't want to get his college degree, you don't want to work for him, you don't want to big up his system and bring more money to his system, they will call you lazy, unaccountable, subhuman, unreliable, crazy. You would be crazy not to want to live the American dream. You have to be lazy not to want to live the American dream. You would have to be unreliable to a woman not to live the American dream, to be able to pay her bills or take care of the family. So you have to be a coon. So anybody that's anti-structure would be considered a coon. See what I'm saying? Let's go. Let's keep going. The coon character was born during American slavery. Slave masters and overseers often describe slaves as slow, lazy, once pushing, an eye servant, and trifling. The master and the slave operated with different motives. The master desired to obtain from the slave the greatest labor by any means. The slave desired to do the least labor while avoiding punishment. The slave registered his protest against slavery by running away. When that was not possible, by slowing work, doing shoddy work, destroying work tubes, faking illness. Slave masters attributed the slave's poor work performance to shiftlessness, stupidity, desire for freedom, and genetic deficiencies. See, are y'all listening? Are y'all listening? See, you gotta listen. The slave was anti the labor structure. So I'm going to break tools. I'm going to run away. I'm going to fake illnesses. I'm anti-system. So you would be considered a coon. You're not the one in the window snitching, boss. Boss. Moses is not working, boss. Brandon Tate, I'm sorry. They're not saying boss. See what I'm saying? Boss, he's not working hard enough. They're not doing this. God damn it, the tractor's stuck in the mud again. Moses, get your ass out of here. They're not doing none of that. See? The amount of work done by a typical slave depending upon the demands of the individual slave owner and their ability to extract labor. Typically, slaves work from dawn to dusk. They were sometimes granted leisure time on Saturday or Sunday evenings. However, this time was spent planting or harvesting their own gardens, washing clothes, cooking, and cleaning. A slave owner wrote, "I always give them half of each Saturday and often a whole day, at which time the women do their household work. Therefore, they are never idle." Slave owners complain about the laziness of their workers, but records show that slaves were often worked hard and brutally so. Overseers were routinely paid commissions, which encouraged them to overwork the slaves. On a North Carolina plantation, the overseer claimed that he was a whole hog man rain or shine, and boasted that the slaves had been worked like horses. He added, I'd rather be dead than be a nigger on one of these big plantations. After the closing of the African slave trade, the price of slaves went up, thereby causing some slave owners and their higher overseers to be more careful in the use of their slaves. The time had been, wrote one slave owner, that the farmer could kill up or wear out one Negro to buy another, but it is not so now. Negroes are too high in proportion to the price of cotton, and it behooves those who own them to make them last as long as possible. Now, where am I going with this? Slaves are generally associated with the harvest of cotton. However, slaves work in many industries. Hold on for a second. Hold on 1 second. Let me go down. Give me 1 second. I want to read the whole thing. All right, yeah. 1 second. I had this drawing mark too. 1 second. All right. All right, here we go. Come back up. I'll start back from here because I got all course. I'll start here and then I'll skip down. The supporters of slavery claimed that blacks were childlike people, unequipped for freedom. Post-slavers acknowledged that some slave masters were cruel, but they argued that most were benevolent, kind-hearted capitalists who civilized and improved their docile black wards. Now I'm going somewhere with this, and y'all got to pay attention to that. 1 second, let me turn my ringer off. Oh man! All right, what's going on, Kenny Conjo? Now it says that supporters of slavery claim that blacks were childlike people, unequipped for freedom. Now we're still treated like that to this day. We're treated as if we're childlike. We're treated as if we can't do anything independent of this white man, and under this Christianity and different things, we behave this way. Pro-slavers acknowledged that some slave masters were cruel, but they acknowledged that most were benevolent, kind-hearted capitalists who civilized and improved their docile black wards. From radical Reconstruction to World War I, there was a national nostalgia for good old darkies who loved their masters. ABL, Brandon. I'm sorry. And according to the pro-slavers, rejected or only reluctantly accepted emancipation. In this context, the conceptualization of the coon was revised. During slavery, almost all blacks, especially men, were sometimes seen as coons. That is, lazy, shiftless, and virtually useless. However, after slavery, the coon caricature was increasingly applied to younger blacks, especially those who were urban, flamboyant, contemptuous of whites. So what I'm saying is, who's the coon? However, after slavery, the coon caricature was increasingly applied to the younger blacks, especially those who were urban, flamboyant, and contemptuous of whites. Does that sound like ABL, Leo Dunson, Brandon Tatum, and them? No. That sounds like the hood people. So these people that we're calling coons, who are they? Let's read on. Universally, the white Southerners will tell you that while the old-time niggers were industrious, saving, and when not misled, well-behaved, kindly, respectful, and self-respecting, and while the remnant of them who remain still retain generally these characteristics, the new issue for the most part are laziness, thriftless, interpret, isolate, dishonest, and without the most rudimentary elements of morality. Usually they report a general depravity, retrogression of the Negroes at large in sections in which are left to themselves, closely resembling the reversion of barbarism. And at the beginning of the 1900s, many whites supported the implementation of Jim Crow and etiquette. My reading is fucked up today. They believed that blacks were genetically therefore permanently inferior to whites. Blacks were, they argued, hedonistic children, irresponsible and left to their own plans, destined for idleness or worse. So when we hear this, right, they say that they believe in the 1900s that if we left to our own vices, we would be fucked up. We would be destined for idleness. We can't move. It was not uncommon for whites to distinguish between niggers, coons, and bucks, Negroes, toms, sambos, and mammies. We're getting somewhere now. They distinguished between niggers, coons, and bucks, and Negroes. So niggers, in parentheses, would be coons and bucks. And Negroes was toms, sambos, and mammies. So now, who are your Negroes? I did a video today where I explained the educated Negro, which becomes the indoctrinated Negro. Because in this system, when you're not being so-called lazy, when you're not being so-called contemptuous, when you're not being so-called argumentative, when you're not grandstanding, and you're getting his education, you're behaving to the standards of the way he said you should behave. You're speaking it in the vernacular in the way he said you should speak. You would be considered the Negro, the Tom, the Sambo, the Mammy. But when you got a voice and you say it loud, black and I'm proud, power to the people, you are a buck and a coon. You are a buck and a coon. See, we got to get through these articles so we can understand the way we're being attacked, and you will understand which black people are on your side and which black people are not on your side. Just because they black don't mean that they're for you. So which category do they fall in? Because whites began to distinguish the niggers and the Negroes. So you got the Negroes and you have the niggers. The Negroes, coons and bucks. The Negroes, Tom, Sambo, mammies. So when you see the judge come down off and hug that woman, right? Whether we say it's fake or real, it's an image that they portray and it's downloaded into your mind. And when you see that, that is mammy-style behavior. I know the system is corrupt. I know the system is anti-my people, but this is the system that I'm going to go along with. It works for me. And they preferred the latter. Let's go. Let's read on. Racial characters are undergirded by stereotypes, and the stereotyping of blacks as coons continued throughout the 20th century. The pioneer study of racial and ethnic stereotyping in the United States was conducted in 1933 by Daniel Katz and Kenneth Barley, two social scientists. They questioned 100 Princeton University undergrads regarding the prevalent stereotypes of racial and ethnic groups. Their research concluded that blacks were consistently described as superstitious, happy-go-lucky, and lazy. The respondents had views even though they had little or no contact with blacks. The study was repeated in 1951, and the negative stereotypes of blacks persisted. The civil rights movement improved whites' attitudes towards blacks, but a sizable minority of whites still hold traditional racist views of blacks. In the early 1900s, an early 1900s study conducted by the National Opinion Research Center found that majority of the white, Hispanic, and other non-black respondents displayed negative attitudes towards blacks. For example, 78% said that blacks were more likely than whites to prefer to live off welfare. and less likely prefer to be self-supporting. Further, 62% said blacks were more likely to be lazy. 56% said blacks were violence prone. And 53% said that blacks were less intelligent than whites. So now, when we're reading this and the way that we're viewed, the black man and the black woman image to the world is already swayed. It's already destroyed. So how can a black person go into a courtroom and expect to have justice, expect for people to psychologically see him as an equal to them? He's already seen as violent. He's seen as over-sexualized. He's seen as aggressive. He's seen as a nigger, a coon, or a buck when he steps inside the courtroom before he even opens his mouth. See, we got to understand what we're dealing with. We got to understand what we're dealing with. See, because this is, now it's time to really teach. And if people really want to get a proper protocol as to how we should be moving, we got to really get down to, and roll up our sleeves and really get down in the mud and really start teaching our people, man, how we're viewed and what's going on. Because you think that you see a person that's a black airline pilot or a black judge or a black doctor, you think that they for you. Some of them look at you with more contempt than a white man do. He's a Negro. He hate niggers. He hate niggers. These Negroes are honorary brown men. They've been given a certain position by the dominant society so now when you're looked down on, or they set up laws to constantly do you wrong, the Negro is the buffer, the go-between. So when you look at that judge, Tammy, when you look at Tammy and you say she's one of us, no, she's not one of you. She's a Negro. When you see that black district attorney, he doesn't represent you. He represents the category of the Toms, the Sambos, and the Mammies. He's not fighting for you. He's fighting for a better spot and position within this dominant society, within this hell that we've been placed in. He's fighting for a comfy spot in hell. That's what he's fighting for. He ain't fighting to deliver his people. So let's read on. A Yale University political student argued that many white Americans believe that blacks receive welfare benefits more often than do whites, and that the century-old stereotypes of blacks as lazy remains credible for a large number of white Americans. He claimed that the opposition to welfare programs results from misinformation and racism, with whites assuming that their tax money is being used to support lazy blacks. Gillen blames in part the media. Pictures of poor blacks are abundant when poverty coverage is most negative, while pictures of non-blacks dominate the more sympathetic coverage. The Coon caricature was one of stock characters among minstrel performers. Minstrel show audiences laugh at the slow-talking fool who avoided work and all adult responsibilities. So let's go over here. Let's find out who the Coon character was. Let's look at this. Let's look at the Coon character. Let's give you a little taste.
14 years I've been spending teaching this time around. Let me see now. Oh yeah, they told me to say something, and I then wrote it down, but I forgot it at home. So now let me. Oh, I know that. I remember some of it. That's right. They asked me to say something that'll be kind of serious. Well, they told me to say something that I think would be help to cause what everybody is trying to get help now. And the thing that I think that I could talk about more is something that I think will help the NRA. That's the INRA. The INRA is built on the one-way drift. It's been going for a long time, and I think now that the NRA done got fuzz till.
Let's pause there because I'll come back to him. I wanted to just give you a taste. I wanted to give y'all a taste of what they would call a coon. Brother Moses, you there for a minute? I want you to come in for a minute because Brother Moses is an educated brother with a degree, went to college, and I want to break something down. I want to compare something for a minute. You there, Brother Moses?
Absolutely. You need to grab some information real fast?
No, I want to ask your opinion on something. Now,
all right, sure.
Now, based off of what I read and based off of this video that I just showed, with this guy, his speech, if he was a Harvard grad or a Bucknell or Dartmouth grad and he spoke the proper English, would he be considered a coon?
That just depends on the behaviors that he demonstrates.
Right. If he spoke the if he spoke the proper European vernacular in the way they conditioned and trained him to do, he walked the way that they wanted him to walk. He wore the suits the way that he wore. Would they consider him lazy and trifling and disrespectful?
Nah, I think they would look at him as a Sambo.
Right. And this is what I'm trying to get the people to understand. See, the thing is this: we got to understand when we don't speak the proper vernacular the way they do. It's kind of like the way we speak English, and they make fun of the way we talk. They make fun of the way we dress. They make fun of the way we walk, even though they want to be like us. They're going to consider you unlike them. You are a threat to their sovereignty because they can't. The word I'm trying to use. They can't civilize you. So let's read on after I showed y'all this, because now it gets real interesting. This transformed the Coon into a comic figure, a source of bitter and vulgar comic relief. He was sometimes renamed Zip Coon or Urban Coon. If the minstrel skit had an antebellum setting, the Coon was portrayed as a free black. If the skit setting post-dated slavery, he was portrayed as an urban black. See, as an urban black, not as ABL brands. I mean, people that work in corporations and stuff like that. He was portrayed as an urban black. So it would be somebody living in Del Paso Heights, walking down the street. These are your coons in Southwest Philadelphia, in the South Side of Chicago. These are your coons, not your Sambos. If the minstrels, the coon was portrayed. Okay, hold on. He remained lazy and good for little, but the minstrel show depicted him as a gaudy dressed dandy who puts on airs. Unlike Mammy and Sambo, Coon did not know his place. Where you at, Moses? Where you at, Moses, on that one? See this?
Hey, yeah, man. Go ahead.
Unlike, now tell me, now I need you to go in and break this down because you're college educated and I'm not. Unlike Mammy and Sambo, Coon did not know his place. He thought he was as smart as white people. However, his frequently malapropisms and distorted logic suggested that his attempt to compete intellectually with whites was pathetic. What do you think about that, Moses?
Hey, man, countless examples from history. The one that stands out immediately would be the case of Emmett Till. Emmett Till or his father, whichever one they want to discuss. But you can't come from Chicago and come down south and think, oh, no, I can do what I want to do. That's, that city slicker attitude. That when I come around, I can whistle, I can go to the stores, I can walk on the sidewalk, I don't have to get off the sidewalk. That type of attitude that did not know your place. See, that would have made you a coon. Unfortunately, that there was that Sambo that tried to correct you and say, nah, you need to step off the sidewalk when Daisy's walking, and they tried to correct you, but you didn't listen. What happened to Emmett Till? What happened to Emmett Till's father, who was in the military, went over to France, and he thought that he could have sex with white women out there. Oh, these are French women. We're not in America anymore. We're different. We're in a different space. I can do it. They hung his ass. He never made it home. Just I think it was like 10 years to the date that his son was hung. So those are examples, Brother George, of what that Coon character. You don't know your place, boy. Go ahead.
You said they hung Emmett Till's dad? I never heard it. I didn't get that one. Wow.
Oh, see, man. Hey, stick with me, man. Stick with me, man. We'll give them this information, man.
Yeah, see, and look at this, Moses. Look at this. The Sambo today would be the one saying, you shouldn't be going up there to them colleges talking like that. You shouldn't be messing with them white folks like that. Damn well these white folks are racist. These are your coon. So let me ask you, Moses. So based off of this logic, Brother Moses, Malcolm X would be a coon because he didn't know his place.
Exactly.
Based off of this, Brother Moses, Medgar Evers would be a coon because he didn't know his place. Based off of this, Dr. Martin Luther King and his brother, A.D. King, would be coons because they spoke out of place. Based off of this, Denmark Vesey would be a coon. Based off of this, Ida B. Wells would be a coon. Based off of this, Queen Mother Moore would be a coon. Based off of this, Assata Shakur would be a coon. Based off of this, George Macon, Riz Morante, Great Black Shark, Moses Jenkins, all of us, Breonna Gale, we're all coons because we don't know our place. We really believe that we are as smart as white people. We really we make attempts to compete with them intellectually. So we would, Taz and Nala would be considered coons. Because we believe that we can compete intellectually with white people. We don't know our place within this structure of white sovereignty. Oh man, this is a good one here. This is good. Let's read on. Let's keep bringing the heat. His use of bastardized. Oh shoot. Oh man, Moses. Look at this one, Moses. His use of bastardized English delighted white audiences and reaffirmed the then commonly held beliefs that blacks were inherently less intelligent. Well, wait a minute. If you take an African people and you enslave them and you force a language on them, to this day, we're never going to speak the English language or vernacular in the way that they do. All words are going to be different. And to prove it, when even in Latino cultures, the Dominican don't talk like the Puerto Rican. The Puerto Ricans sound totally different from the Mexican or Guatemalan. Their English, their vernaculars are different. So if you take English language and force it on an African-speaking people, we're going to say words like "yoon." Man, you don't know what you're talking about. Not you don't know. That's too long. You don't know what you're talking about. Come here. Not come here. Come here. Come here. You don't know what you're talking about, homie. What y'all doing? That's how we talk. You understand, Moses? Moses, you don't know what you're talking about, man. Come here. Come, C-O-M-M-E-R-E. Come here. Not come here. We don't talk like them.
And I said both of y'all. Both.
We never talked like them. And that's why you can tell when the black person is trying to change his vernacular to fit in with whites. Listen, talking white is a real thing. We don't talk like them. That's not who we are. Brother Moses is highly educated. O'Shea is highly educated. Brother Moses don't talk like that. So there's no excuse. I know when you're faking the phone. We don't talk like them. The minstrel's Coon's goal was leisure. And his leisure was spent strutting, styling. Look at this. The minstrel's Coon goal, leisure. Now I want y'all to really hear this and understand this, because I'm about to take this somewhere. And it may lose some of y'all, but y'all got to stay with me. The minstrel's Coon's goals was leisure, and his leisure was spent strutting, styling, fighting, avoiding real work, eating watermelons, and making a fool of himself. If he was married, his wife was dominating him. If he was single, he sought to please the flesh without entanglements. Inside there was your dominating male, fighting, strutting, styling, avoiding the white man's structure and system. So anytime they put that term in avoiding real work, that means that he was rebelling against a system that he deemed unjust. So when I decide to not be a part of the unjust system, I'm lazy. I'm sexually aggressive. My woman is dominating me because she has a job and I don't. See, y'all got to stay on point. You got to pay attention to the wordplay and what they're doing, because all of these things are very important. So now they're gonna tell you a little story about Step and Fetch It, right? Let's move down. Hollywood films extended the brutalization inherent in the Coon in the Coon image. The first cinematic Coon appeared in Wooing and Wedding of a Coon in 1905. The stupendously racist portrayal of two dim-witted and stuttering buffoons. Several notable slapstick Coon shorts were produced in 1910 and 1911, including how Rattus got his turkey in 1910. He stole it, and the chicken thief in 1911. In the blackface comedy Coontown, 1914, a group of domineering mammies organized a movement to keep their good-for-nothing husbands at home. These early Coons laid the foundation for the great movie Coons of 1930s and 40s. The 1929 film, Fox film, Hearts of Dixie, Chloe is married to Gummy, a languid, shiftless husband whose mystery in his feet prevents him from being of any earthly good as far as work is concerned. See, they got to portray these images of black men because black men are the warrior class. You have to have these images of black men where they can't defend themselves. So let's go down to Stephen Fetchit. Stephen Fetchit was born in Lincoln Theodore Perry, May 30th, 1892. A medicine show and vanilla performer. He arrived in Hollywood in the 1920s. Perry claimed that he got the name Stephen Fetchit from a racehorse that won him money. However, he also told an interviewer that he came to Hollywood as a member of a comedy team known as Stephen Fetchit, and later adopted a variant of the name. His first movie role featured the name Stephen Fetchit was in MGM's in old Kentucky. Damn, MGM been around that long? Fetchit became identified in the popular imagination as a dialect-speaking, slump-shouldered, slack-jawed character who walked, talked, and apparently thought in slow motion. The Fetchit character overcame this lethargy only when he thought that a ghost or some nameless terror might be present, and then he moved very quickly indeed. Listen, look how they did the black man. Fetchit was the embodiment of a nitwit black man. As with Zip Coon and Urban Coon, this old-fashioned Coon character could never correctly produce a multisyllabic word. He was portrayed as a dunce. In stand-up and cheating and McFadden in 1934, he was tricked into thinking that a talking penguin was really Jimmy Durante. Fetchit, scratching his head, eye bulging, portrayed the Coon so realistically that whites thought they were seeing a real racial type. His Coon portrayal was aided by his appearance, according to Donald Bogle. So this guy right here, right? Let me go down, because I'm going to show you what he became. And then Moses is going to take over on the next one. In the black communities, Stephen Fetchit remained a synonym for a bowing and scalping black man. In 1970, he sued CBS unsuccessfully for $3 million, charging defamation of character for the way he was portrayed in a television documentary, Black History Lost, stolen or strayed. It was Stepp, he claimed, who elevated the Negro to dignity of a Hollywood star. I made the Negro a first-class citizen all over the world. Somebody it was all right to associate with. Now, me and Moses had an argument before about this because he believes that Stephen Fetchit believes that he made the Negro known worldwide. And I kind of agreed with him at first till Brother Moses broke it down as to why he was a detriment and a problem. Because he says, I made the Negro a first-class citizen all over the world. Somebody it was all right to associate with. I opened all the theaters. The statement of hyperbole, however, Stephen Fetchit was a talented actor who added depth, albeit slight, the movie Coon's Betrayal. He was the first to become a millionaire, too. So, Brother Moses, where you at before we get to the next one? Explain to the people how did you see Stephen Fetchit as opposed to what he was saying? Because he feels as though he made the black man first class. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have had an identity. How do you feel about that, Brother Moses?
Yeah, so likewise, when we were competing in for media spaces, we were going up against the beast, and going up against that beast meant there were folks who would stay on code, and they would only try to put us in the positive light. They would use their education, as we always bring up the educated folks, and they would try to open up doors. And then you have that opposite end, Brother George, those folks who may have had that same education, but now they're closing doors. They may have had an opportunity to open up a show, but if it meant, being typecast or portraying a character that was outside of the code, they would have turned down that code. And so on one end, the black capitalist idea, that individual who goes out there and says, well, I'm going to get the bag regardless. I'm going to, my ability to open up doors will be for me to, their impact or their influence, the mark that they're going to leave or their legacy will be one that just says, as long as I get paid for it, I'm doing the right thing. And the people who come after me, they can worry about image. They can worry about, the way the black man is portrayed, how we're viewed after me. But first, I just have to open the door. And so that's where I'm conflicted. As you know, it is important for us to generate a profit. I'm not going to be against those brothers who go out there and try to secure that bag. And I definitely won't disagree with those folks who say, well, I have to leave a mark and I have to have a legacy. But you know me, Brother George, stay on code. Once it starts to move into that space where you're off code, where now we're depicted as that lazy image, that slow talking, and the only reason why we're acceptable is because you're acquiescing to the eugenic society notion that black folks are intellectually inferior. While we know we're inventing everything, while this is 1934. We did the episode about the great inventors at the time and their contribution, the refrigerators and all of those things, the war effort and the things that allowed us to survive as a people. If you don't have a refrigerator, Brother George, then how did we survive? Were we still just putting things in the backyard, or you had to eat all of your consumables at a time? But meat and protein now. But they could never get that light because the code was broken. And what else? It makes it acceptable to break that code. And what else? It makes them typecast to where they only want characters who will go against that own code. What I'm saying? We may not want another, what was the brother name? We don't want that radical image out there. We don't want that, that strong black, buck the system, fight back, the one we don't want that dude who's going out there challenging the system. And so now we've even come to accept the Sambo as a legitimate or as a valid form of representing the black man or the black woman. Does that make sense? My disagreement is now that because, they'll hire the Sambo. So therefore, if I don't become a Sambo, or if I don't project myself to be a Sambo, then I won't get a job. So now what do you have? People now who are work in corporate spaces, or they'll go into education spaces, they'll work in political spaces, but they're doing the same damn thing. Go along to get along. Don't buck the system. Continue to just dummy up, play dumb. Don't show them that you're intelligent. Placate. Make yourself submissive. Voluntarily submit even your intelligence. Don't challenge. And what happens when we're trying to compete for precious resources? When we're trying to compete for, how do we get more people to stop getting locked up? They're continuing to make crimes that typecast against the Coon and the Sambo and the Aunt Jemima. And the only people that they will afford an opportunity are the ones who won't fight back. And what do we have? More people who are not going to fight back. So yeah, he got paid. Yeah, he did open up the way in Hollywood for more black people to get on. But the type of black people that they're looking to put on will not buck the system. And what happens? You have talent. You have people who've made a significant amount of money, but there is no way now to reverse that cycle and start to reinvest inside of those black spaces for those folks who aren't going to become a fucking Sambo.
So what we gonna do, Moses? When we come here, I want you to read this that you read the last time, the one I sent you, the Darktown images. But
okay.
Before we get to the Darktown images, we're gonna listen to some more Step It Fetch It first, so people can really get a good understanding for this Step It Fetch It. And the thing is, when you see the Step It Fetch It today, the Step It Fetch It he doesn't represent a Coon. Represent a Sambo, because it goes with what Brother Moses said. He's doing whatever he can do to get in. He's doing whatever he can do to get a paycheck. He's doing whatever he can do to get notice. Where despite whatever images that he may be putting out. Because you see what it said. It said white people began to view black people and black men as this way because he played this role so well. So let's look. Let's listen a little bit more to this.
And they also done prove in history that when nations get old and tired, that they are ones that always starting wars. Because young nations don't do nothing but fight when they trapped and they just fight and get it over with. And therefore we figure that since rest is so proves itself that the INRA will help the NRA to finish what is already almost done. And the reason why I'm speaking is because the INRA has did something that is kind of will help me is
So when you look at this man, he's not threatening. He's not somebody that the white man would be afraid of or somebody that they would have to even worry about. He's a docile, controlled Negro. He's a docile, controlled Negro. Now tell me that's not the same as he said that's the same as mumble rap.
Hey, you play my boy. This dude said when them old nations get tired and these young nations start to fight amongst each other, and that's when you'll see instances like the IRA that supports the NRA. Did y'all not hear what hey man, and that's what happens. That's what happens. The message gets lost inside of the character, so he's just another dumb Negro. But what he say? He said when these old nations, when these old colonizers start getting tired, what will they do? They'll fight for they'll finance the wars of these young nations that are fighting each other. And for example, you'll see the IRA or the Irish supporting the NRA. Man, I'm gonna leave it right there, man. I know you got me coming up, man. I'm gonna go in.
Yeah. So we got you right here on Dark Town Images. Do I gotta scroll down, or do you got it where you can see it and you can read it?
Let's see if you would be so kind, man. You know, I'd be willing to share my screen and go in since it's a little bit bigger over here to allow us to see a little bit.
I gotta unshare so you can share, right?
Yeah. Yep, you unshare and then I'll be able to share the screen.
All right. Yeah, come on.
All right, and I got to thank everybody and salute everybody that's joining us in this stream. I don't want to be too long here, so if I'm talking a little bit fast, I can see it on my other screen, but just let me know. I know he did say about an hour and 20 minutes tops, and then he went on for 52 minutes. That's my brother George May.
I got in my bag.
Hey, you got it in your bag, bro. And so let me do this. What I'm going to do is I am going to share this screen. I do have a heck of a lot of content that I want to bring to you. But one of the major arguments that you'll hear as we continue to have this conversation, you'll hear folks say that, well, what are we doing to fight back? What are we doing to unify? Why aren't we, and then they'll have X, Y, and Z. And so what I want to do is, and what Brother George brought out, is this story here. It's about Darktown. And it imagines what it was like for Atlanta's first black policeman. And so it goes into their story. Those first black police officers there in the early 1950s, I believe it is. They have the information there that's going to be available. And it gives you an account of their experience. And I want you to hold into the back of your mind that idea, that counter narrative that says, well, why aren't black folks, why don't you become the sheriffs and the deputies? Why don't you become the teachers if you think the education's bad? Why don't you become the politicians? And so keep that in mind. And we're going to continue to give you this information. Then after that, I do have quite a few slides up because I was looking up some of the images from Brother George's information that he provided. Some of those postcards, some of the cartoons that made it into today that were a part of that programming. Not just for us. Somebody put Amos and Andy in the chat. It wasn't just for us. The thing to remember there is that the majority of the community was the white folks. So the Tom and Jerry's, and what did those images do for them? all the way into the South Park. And so I got quite a few images that I want to show that carry us from that minstrel show, those products that we were putting out
Your,
there, and so forth.
your mic is messing up, Moses, a little bit. It's scratchy. Your mic.
My mic was messing up.
It's better now. You might have been shaking something. Might have been shaking a little bit. It was like scratchy. It sounds better now.
All right, so let's get into it. As you know, I am going to be reading, and so let's scroll down. So here we have, looks like 8 officers taking a photo of all shades of colors, but these are our brothers back in that time. 48, excuse me. 8 African-American men joined the Atlanta police force. They could not drive squad cars, step foot in police headquarters, citizens. They are the inspiration of Thomas Mullen's new novel, Darktown. Information about it is available at the Keenan Research Center at the Atlanta History Center. I'll go into the article published by NPR. In 1948, Atlanta added 8 black men to its police force. This was at a time when, as author Thomas Mullen explains, a 1947 Newsweek article estimated that 1/4 of Atlanta policemen were, in fact, members of the Ku Klux Klan. I got to make this a little bit bigger just so y'all can see it. All right, so now I think you all should be able to see the words that we're going through. I'm not making this up. 1/4 of the policemen were in fact members of the Ku Klux Klan. Those pioneer police officers were the inspiration for Mullen's new novel, Darktown, a blend of history, mystery, and violence that explores racial tensions in post-World War II Atlanta. Today, the city is known as one of the most progressive in the South. Proudly dubbed the city too busy to hate, it never erupted into the racial violence that made other large Southern metropolises infamous. But the city wasn't too busy to keep its African-American cities in their assigned place. Sambos. Small wonder that the decision to incorporate a handful of black rookies into the Atlanta Police Department caused such uproar. Knowing there would be stiff, maybe violent resistance to the rookies' presence, Chief Herbert Jenkins assigned them a separate space. Instead of working from police headquarters, the black officers, under the oversight of a white captain, were relegated to the basement of a local colored YMCA. The mayor and police chief of Atlanta were worried that if black men in uniform showed their faces in headquarters, the white cops would riot and attack them, Mullen says. The 8 were sometimes likened to the police equivalent of Jackie Robinson, who made national headlines the year before as the first African American to play Major League Baseball. And like Robinson, Mullen says, they worked under incredible restrictions. They had to ignore racial taunts and abuse. They couldn't let their tempers flare. They were issued guns and badges reluctantly, but they couldn't do much with them. They could only patrol the black neighborhoods. They weren't supposed to set a foot in white parts of town, Mullen says. They couldn't drive squad cars. They had to walk their beat with a partner. And perhaps worst of all, they couldn't arrest white people, Mullen explains. Even when crimes were committed right in front of them, the black rookies had to call for white assistance. In the beginning of Darktown, a young black woman is killed, and 2 of the new policemen, against orders and on their own, decide to investigate her death. Mullen says being both black and a policeman was sometimes agonizing. These men walked a razor-thin line. On the one hand, they're second-class citizens as black men in the Jim Crow South. They couldn't ride in the front of the bus. They couldn't eat in most restaurants, he says. But at the same time, they were also authority figures, and they have to enforce the laws of the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia. And a lot of those laws were racially biased. Upholding them didn't endear the rookies to some in their own community who saw them as toothless sellouts, Sambos.
Oh, so
even as the cities,
they were still sellouts even back then, huh, Moses?
They were still sellouts, Sambos, do a job to get a job, but they had to open those doors, right? They had to be the first. They had to walk through those doors. They had to challenge it. If you want to be, if you got to be the change that you want to see. Where do we hear them cliches? Why are you whining and complaining about the police and the over policing of the black community and the criminal justice system and the laws and the enforcement of those laws and the disparaging of the black male character? Why are you crying when you have just as right to become the police? So that's why this story was important, and that's why we got to honor you for bringing it out, even as the city's black establishment celebrated them. So you remember at the same time that the establishment, those boule, as they call it, those HBCUs, and the people who did get that education, and the people who were getting upper echelon jobs and bringing in an income, the people who could be decision makers on a city council board by proxy, the people who could try to say, well, these are the laws that are important, and they did have a little bit of influence as they thought, the people who would become the advisors to the Congressional Black Caucus, the advisors to the NAACP. They would serve as volunteers for those local chapters. They would be the Collegiate 100 of the 100 Black men. They would be those who offer mentoring and executive mentoring. They would be the ones who give the scholarships and attend these big galas and these inaugural balls. Those, brother, the establishment, the black church, deacon board, nigga, trustee board. These established folks celebrated them. They were called on to police, called them sellouts. See, that's that rift in the black community when we don't know the difference between a coon and a sambo. When we don't know the difference between a mammy and an Aunt Jemima. When that black woman who is breastfeeding the masses' kids is now being said, you know, by black folks even, oh, she did that voluntarily. She wanted to. That wasn't rape. That wasn't her black body being used and objectified. That wasn't the milk of our mothers being given to those folks by force. No, she wanted to do that. Because they don't know the difference, Brother George. They don't got anybody to challenge them on how the media used those stereotypes and used them against us to the point of those minstrel shows. They wouldn't hire a black person for those countless decades, but they paint their faces black. You had to have that brother that you showed go on and break those doors open, and he had to play slow. But all of that money and that economic power that was denied is now irreversible and irreconcilable between us. That money is not coming into black film. It's going into the mud, but not those C and D-rated black films. You're not going to get a shot on Netflix with no movie that you just filmed with your Apple iPhone. No documentaries about the Dark Town will be released. Let me keep going. That made rich material for Mullen's novel. He says, I wanted to examine the psychological pressure these men must have been under, having to play two conflicting roles. There are a few sympathetic white policemen in Mullen's book, but many of their colleagues neglect and abuse the people in Atlanta's black neighborhoods, which they derisively refer to as Darktown. Whether those neighborhoods were privileged or poor, race made them all Darktown to the APD. Now, you got to remember that this was the metropolis for black excellence, but there were Darktowns everywhere. There were Ku Klux Klan dominated police forces everywhere. Places that weren't hiring the 8 black folks and not even putting them in a basement. And it's still there today. And as says Mullen, some of the tensions described in Darktown, like the ability of white police to injure or kill black citizens with impunity without being charged or punished, sounds disturbingly familiar. It sounds like Amber Geiger being able to run into your home. And a judicial system that says, well, that's that case there, and the merits of this case would qualify for this consideration. This is stand your ground. So I want y'all to consider that she maybe had to stand her ground. And once you sentence her, it may qualify for sudden passion, which is 2 to 20 years, to defend that woman from running inside of the home of a black man and killing him while he's sitting on his couch eating ice cream. And many of those cases never are tried. But in this event, the laws that are still on the books. Let me keep going. He says, I started this book about 4 years ago. So I was pretty much done with the rough draft in the summer of 2014 when Michael Brown was killed. And Ferguson became the major news story. Mullen remembers. Then Staten Island, then Baltimore, and Black Lives Matter. And suddenly race and policing was a major story in a way it hadn't been since really Rodney King when I was a high school student. See, we still fighting the same battles from Rodney King. The millions that were locked up for marijuana since Rodney King. Brother Taz of the B1 Network brought out a story today where the police officer was investigated, and the only reason why they threw the guns in was because of the marijuana. Now 27 states, I think it's 33 states now, have on the books some form of legal marijuana. But the millions of African American bodies that were thrown inside of these prisons will never get justice because we can't even talk about law with these niggas. We got to continue to say, man, stop calling black women mammy. Stop perpetuating the same white supremacist talking points. We got to keep having these conversations with brothers who don't know the difference between being a coon or being a Sambo, and they fluctuate between being both because it's convenient and because it sells.
They say
because people keep logging on.
They say we conflating, Brother Moses, when we talk. We conflating. Even we bring the receipts to bring the information to give the breakdown. And I guarantee you, Brother Moses, it would be some of them would see this live stream would tell me that the assessment of what a coon and Sambo is, they'll tell me that I'm wrong. They'll tell me that I'm inaccurate.
Or they'll tell you, well, I just don't agree that has anything to do with me because in my own personal experience, I'm not advocating for any of that. And you'd be like, come on, man. That's why great minds, Brother George, discuss history. The average mind can talk about the events that occurred throughout either history or today or even sure. But it takes those very small minds to only be able to discuss these individuals. It wasn't about the black judge. The state decided. The state decided that it was allowable for that woman to run inside of a black man's house and allowable for the stand your ground doctrine to be applied, or the castle doctrine to apply.
Real quick, Mo,
decided.
Real quick, while you in there, I don't want to steal your thunder, but why you just made me think of something. When you say the state decided, you know what else the state decided? The state also decided how to tell black people when they're educated how they should think, how you should move. The institutions that they go to and they're educated in tells you how you should think. Instead of being black first, you are an American and you got to go along with our way of thinking. So even if you know that this is wrong, the American way is doing black people the way that we say they should be done. So when you say the term the state, you're right. The state is telling that judge how she should behave. The state is telling Amber Geiger that it's okay to go shoot a black man, and I can use a castle theory. The state, the thought process within white supremacy is telling us how we should operate, how we should move. We should be forgiven. The state and religion through the state is telling Botham Jean's brother he should get off and hug that white woman. So that's all I wanted to say. Go ahead, brother. I'm being quiet.
Absolutely. I mean, the rest of the story is just going to go into the fiction version. And that fiction version, as we know, it's an account and it's used to drive more sales. It's media, it's propaganda, it's much needed. And I just wanted to point out here, Oscar winner Jamie Foxx is attached to produce the book. as a TV series. So hopefully they can get some support. They can actually drive it. Black police officers, or the first black police officers in Atlanta, would be a strong story and a testament to our success on having to have these conversations and to continue to push it forward. It's not going to be a pretty, and it's not going to be accepted, but it is a necessary compromise here. How can we get the stories out? Hopefully they do a good job there. But from there, if it's I, Brother George, can I pivot? Because we are getting a little bit close. We're at the 110 mark right now, and I did want to bring out some of the other information for us. So I wanted to go into it from the Jim Crow Museum, the racist memorabilia. Sometimes the pictures say 1,000 words. I don't even know if I should do them, vocalize them, or if I should just do them in silence. People can see them. From postcards, stamps, the minstrel shows, countless plays like they didn't have before they had the TV, because the black man hadn't invented it, or the functionality of a TV yet. When they were listening to their music, all of these were driving home that stereotype. They wanted to laugh and they wanted to talk about black folks.
Oh yeah, I'm back. Yeah, I got the pictures in the cut, and these is the okay, go ahead. Yeah, you got the cards.
Plates, bowls, restaurants, the Coon Chicken Inn. Even today, the fresh produce, they still watermelon. You say watermelon, and this is still the image that most folks relate to. The watermelon, or the evolution. Black folks love them some watermelon. Black folks love them some chicken. Chicken George. Barbecue. Tobacco. Uncle Tom's. Ham bone.
Well, this is the way that they view this.
See, now these are some of the classic images. The Amos and Andy, as somebody put in the chat. So as you move into modern times, they had to continue their conditioning program, their regularly scheduled routine blackface. See, this was for the adults. That Amos and Andy blackface. Postcards that are still being sold. Oh, I did want to do that one. Again, when it came to the vaudeville shows or the minstrel shows.
Oh wow, yeah, these is the shows that they was depicting us in. You can't make it bigger, can you?
Nope. Every time I tried, this is all they would give us. But again, these are the same postcards similar to the ones when they just committed a hanging. So then they would go on stage, or they'd have the local shows where they did these big stages, and this is how it was depicted in movies. But they didn't have they had the film, they had the whatever, the eukaryotype camera. But this is how they entertain themselves, by reinforcing this message about the Negro, by reinforcing the eugenic ideology that said the Negro and was non-intellectual. He was inferior. These are still the memorabilia, the black soap. Even today, you'll still find people moving into the, I need to sell soap if I need my own business. Let me sell some black bars of soap. Let me sell some O'Shea butter or shea butter.
Some O'Shea butter.
I call it the O'Shea butter.
Look at that
Why?
black
Because
baby.
it's a spot.
Why the baby so black?
Oh, that's where we're moving. I know that's a big call out right there. But the books that they use to reinforce it, The Strange Tale of 10 Little Nigger Boys. I don't even know how to say the word nigger boys, however you say it. The Way That We Speak, as you brought out. The Georgia Minstrels. So if you don't understand it, in Atlanta, when it was 25% of their police force was Ku Klux Klan, and the Georgia Minstrel shows were going around depicting the black folks, and then giving them a reason for heavy policing or to murder and to kill because of that stereotype of the lazy Negro, the hapless, the shiftless Negro. So again, when they make these statements about black folks and the immigrants are still in the black folks' jobs, you'll hear them say, "Oh, the black folks were too lazy. They didn't really want them jobs. Them was jobs that they didn't want to do no way." They're reinforcing the same negative stereotype. This guy here, Sambo or Coon, by the end of this show, you should know what is the difference. Who
Look
is
at
this
the
guy?
soap. Tar Baby soap.
The Tar Baby soap. Now black folks are saying, well, at least we need to be a part of that economics. We need to sell our own soap. So if they call it Tar Baby soap or not, maybe they understand why it was important for you to be the owner of that business. Because somebody said, well, look, you don't even sell your own bath soap to wash your own ass with. All right, putting in the form of the cartoon because you had to make it simple enough for an illiterate, somebody with a second or third grade level. Coming out of the 30s and into the 40s, there was a great migration into the big cities. That's the event that we could talk about, but the literacy rate was still low. The integrated schools didn't happen until after Brown versus Board in the 50s. Aunt Jemima still. Red rags is the bloods, as they call it.
Look at the water sports.
Which one?
Go a little slower so we can.
Oh, my bad. I didn't know how fast it was scrolling.
It's going fast. Yeah, go back up a little bit so we can see the water sport. The Fountain of Youth. Look at this. Fountain of Youth water sports. The kid got his ass out. As you can see here. Oh, he went past it.
Oh, my bad.
It went back. That's the water sports right there. That's the little boy in the water sport. Look at Uncle Remus. They got this is all the racist stuff they used to put. But this is the thing. These are all the racist things that they used to put out on us. They used to come out on all these major corporations. And this is the way that they viewed us. And this, I'll wait till you finish because when I show the pictures I got, I want to explain something to them. You keep building.
And see, if they're not understanding that the report that we just read, World War II and in World War I, you remember the Tuskegee Airmen, Brother George. Yeah. And so in order to combat that and to justify the murder, in order to justify not giving them housing, not giving them access to, those benefits that came with their military service, land and such, this is how they would depict them. Air raids. So now it makes sense when your white banker, your racist white banker is not going to approve that loan. Now it makes sense why the redlining happens, because these Negroes aren't going to keep a job. That lazy attitude that was depicted with these images. Look, they had no problem with the pedophilic, putting our little boys and girls, our little girls' naked bodies on these postcards and shipping them out. They had no problem with it. None at all. And these major corporations that used to advertise and promote with the naked bodies of black folks are not going to be held accountable until we have black men who can come together and say, you know what? I'm not the Sambo. I'd prefer to be looked at as a coon before the Sambo. I may have the Sambo's intelligence, but I'm not going to play that submissive game. Let me keep moving forward because they may not, you got to drive it home for them, Brother George. The blackface cartoons like the Bugs Bunny. If we don't drive it home for them, they'll think that we're just making this shit up. Mickey Mouse and Disney. While we keep having the NFL and the Jay-Z argument about the NFL and who gets the rights to show it and all of those different topics about sports and entertainment and all of that. They call it the Jackie Robinson. But if you don't get the connections, then you'll just be lost. This is still the same blackface. Let me sell you. Let me laugh at you. Let me be entertained by you. Because you are an inferior breed. Tom and Jerry.
Yeah, those cartoons was racist as shit.
Amos and Andy, Mickey Mouse. What happened with newsprint and media? People were turning to the funny pages. What did they want to see on the funny pages? These little type of comical sketches. My bad. I know I'll be scrolling super fast.
Yes, you going fast as hell.
I'm trying to give them that work, man. They got to get this work. Like this one. Governor Blackface.
Governor Blackface.
Look what it says, though, Brother George. The blackface guy has to go. So what happens with the politicians?
It's
And they
still,
look and see the Klan.
it's still moving. We can't see it. Oh, okay, good. There you go. There you go.
They look in the mirror, and what do you see in the mirror? Or they look out and they look out of their lens, and what are they observing? They're observing somebody who has on blackface who's running for an office or such. God, every time, brother, every time. It don't matter what I'm doing. And then they'll see the Klan member, and what do they say? Well, the blackface guy has to go. And that's the satire that they're saying. I'm bringing out satire. No, you're still propagating these same messages. At some point, you have to say, well, how is our system still governed by either of these motherfuckers? Or the person who says the blackface person got to go, but will continue to allow this person to operate, the Steve Kings. You'll hear on some of the black channels, they still talk about mammy, mammy. That's their big word now. That's what they love to say. And they like to say in a satire or a sarcastic tone, they say men of means won't do it. Not even at the same time acknowledging that they're using an acronym for mom. So the same thing as mammy.
Look at this. Look how they depicted this. Look at that monkey. But see, Moses, I gotta ask you, Moses. I think it's something very important that we all leave out when we have these topics, and we talk about how it affected us, but we dropped the ball, Sister Aries, Sister Gail. We dropped the ball, Great Black Shark, when we don't understand and we never really stop and think about how it affected the white person. See, when you are a kid and Santa Claus is white, Jesus is white, all the inventors is white, anything associated with greatness is white, and you don't see yourself written into greatness, you don't see yourself as great. But what does that do psychologically to the mind of the white kid that's been socially engineered as well to be victimized by the dominant society and used as a pawn? See, the white people are conditioned to see you as less than. And what I'm trying to say, all right, I'll share now. Hold on a second. I want to drive this point. I want to drive this point home because it's necessary and it's very important. Because I think that we missed the mark. We missed the mark when y'all need to see like these images. All right. What happens is when you look at an image like this, and you have, as you can see, you got the big mama and them up behind here. You got the black man going down the steps and he trips. Is a boot hitting him upside the head. He elbowing a black woman in the face. This is an image of incompetence. And what you guys need to understand is something is, how did the dominant society get poor whites to fight in their militaries and kill? You never seen an elite white come. Hey, Moses, you ever hear any stories of J.P. Morgan or the Rockefellers hanging a slave, Moses?
Not a one.
No, they conditioned poor whites to do it. And one would have to ask the question, how did they condition poor whites to go along with their deviant plan and to carry it out? By images like this and miseducation inside their institutions. White people, I'm going to say this, and a lot of people not going to like what I'm going to say, but you got to hear my words, understand what the way George teach. White people, these racist whites are victimized as well, but they don't know it. They're being taken advantage of and used as pawns in this dominant society to carry out their destructive plans. Millions of white people have died in wars that they don't even know what they died for. They're getting the same GMO foods you're getting. They're getting the same immunization shots you're getting. They're working in the same refineries, catching cancer the same as you are. White folks, they on opioids, they on crack, they on everything that you are. But for what was one thing, they've been conditioned to believe that they are greater than you through the institutions and what's been taught to them. When you see these kind of images of the black man and the black man depicted in incompetence, when you see these kind of images, look at this. This is a white man this is a white man coming through on horse and carriage, and look at he's running over Negroes. You got Negroes pulling the horse. Like these are the images. These are images that was devastating to black people, and most of us miss the mark. We don't get it. We don't get it. I gotta show these images of the Coon character, because every image that I'll show you, these are images. Let me move this out of the way. These are images of black men in incompetence. Black men in the affair of honor, a straight shot. So you got a black man tripping and the gun going off, shooting him in the foot. He's standing off to the left, just looking like, what the hell is going on? You got Negroes running and jumping over the fences. Like it's just where you wine too, nigga? You're going to Sawbones and how we talk. These are the ways that they depicted black men. So one would have to ask the question,
Brother George.
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
That image right there, you can't tell me that the dude on the right doesn't look like my Morehouse brother Samuel Jackson on that movie, The Django.
Wow. Hold on a second. Here you go. Look at this one. These are images like Darktown. A grand football, Darktown against Blackville. So they had towns like Darktown versus Blackville, and they playing soccer. You can look at the one guy, he's laying up on his ass in the air, feet in the air, the boots hanging off, his butt hanging out. Like these are all images that was devastating to the now. Yeah, hold on. Let's get to this one. Look at this one. All of these images, Brother Moses, represents incompetence. So look at the image of the black woman as an ape, and you got an ape holding 2 ape babies, and there's a fire, and instead of them spraying the fire, they're spraying her ass. See, and some people will, the Darktown Fire Brigade under full steam. Some of y'all will look at these images and y'all will just laugh and think it's funny. But no, this is the way that we were depicted. This is the way that they view us as a people. And because they put these images out there, to this day, we are still viewed as under these stereotypes. This is the way that these people saw us. Let me get to because I got more. I thought I made a mistake. I thought I had them lined up the way. Why does joint come in bigger? You see this here? You see these images of them racing, and the black man sticks his neck out, and how long his neck goes out. Like these are all funny images that whites will put on postcards. They will put them on postcards. Look at this one. This is an image of 2 white people actually fighting, getting into a fight, and arguing over basically Republican and Democrat and different things. And they get into a fight. You have Abraham Lincoln here. You have Ulysses Grant. This is Black YouTube, Brother Moses. This is how we argue and beat up each other on Black YouTube. Never coming to a general consensus as to which way we should be moving. Let's go. Let's look at some more. I'm kind of salty because I had all this stuff lined up the way I wanted to have it. Look at this shit, man. Look at these images. Look at these images, Moses. Look at the black person coming over the roof, the man me inside the window. So one would have to ask the question, Little Miss Chocolate, what does this do to the minds of white people when they get this, that never really grew up around black people? How do they view us? Still to this day, how do they see us? This is baseball. Now, everybody knows how we dominated sports, but when you see this says base hit. So he's running the bases, but all the incompetent, stupid ass so-called Negroes or niggers is running to knock over the umpire. So basically what they're saying is we don't, Moses, what they're saying in this picture, because images speaks 1,000 words, These niggas are incapable of following instructions. They're incapable of following instructions. Look at this one. An ice cream racket throwing it out. So you got a white man and all. You got a white man in all black. I mean, a black man in all white, and they call them. Let's go. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. This is the great oyster eating match between Darktown camaraderies and the Blackville Busters. So out there for y'all out there in California, when y'all got the terms "ain't Nathan but a buster," I'm stranded on death row. That term "buster" comes from the South. The finish. You uses a tie. These ones that gangs fuss. I can't even say that shit. But these are oyster eating contests, and this is the way that they depicted us in the oyster eating contest. So I want to find one. Let me get rid of this real quick because it was a lot of good ones that we had on the last one. Oh, look at this one here with the fire and shit. Oh man, what the hell? Yeah, I made a mistake. I should have had all this shit lined up because they're not coming in right now. I actually took the pictures, but I don't know how to bring them up on this thing. I actually did. I'm not even gonna try. Yeah, no, this is the one of the fucking other lady. Hold on a second. Oh man. No, but I mean I think we get the picture because I actually like the fact Moses you brought those other pictures in. But these are cards. What I need y'all to understand, these are postcards that they will send to their families, and depicting the way that they viewed us. Look at this one here. I gotta show this one. Look at this, brother Moses. Oh man, items closed. Let's see. Pull it up. Here we go. Look at this image here. This is an image of. Look at the fire. They're not putting the water on the fire. The nitwit is in the ceiling, is in the roof. They're spraying the water with him. You got a big old mammy with a big old black ass coming out there, carrying her out. She didn't jumped out the window. While she jumped out the window, she fanning herself. But they holding the sheet that got a hole in it. They holding the sheet that got a hole in it. So these are incompetent Negroes, and they're not. And see the difference, Moses. They're not separating whether these are coons or sambos. They're telling you this is how we view all you niggas. This is how we see. This is how we see you. This is how we see you. There's no differentiation as to who's the so-called coon and who's the sambo. So what we're gonna do? Let's just go back. Let's go back. Let's recap before we get out of here because I said I wasn't gonna be here that long, and I'm actually longer than what I said I was. I'm an hour and a half. I started 8:30. It's 10 o'clock here. So I basically want to recap a little bit for some of the people that came in. And Brother Moses, I guess we can freestyle. I'm gonna read the first paragraph over again. And Brother Moses, you can interject whenever you want, and we'll just go back and forth. So for people that wasn't here, we'll reiterate what the Coon character is. So I'll go in and explain what the Coon is. The Coon character is one of the most insulting of all anti-black characters. Name itself, an abbreviation of raccoon, is dehumanized. It's dehumanizing. As with Sambo, the Coon was portrayed as lazy, easily frightened, chronically idle, and accurate buffoon. Now that's real important when you listen to that. On what they telling you the Coon was. As with Sambo, the Coon was portrayed as lazy, frightened, chronically idle, and accurate buffoon. The Coon differed from the Sambo in subtle but important ways. The Sambo was depicted as a perpetual child, not capable of living as an independent adult. Oh man, what does that mean, George? That means that ABL Brandon Tatum, the Coon, the Sambo, basically is pro system. He does not think for himself. He does not think outside the box. Whatever the dominant society says, he fights to uplift it. He fights to perpetuate it. He doesn't challenges it. The Coon acted childish, but he was an adult, albeit a good for little adult. Sambo was portrayed as a loyal and content servant. Indeed, Sambo was offered as a defense for slavery and segregation. ABL, Brandon Tatum. Defense for slavery. How bad could these institutions have been, asked the racialists, if blacks were contented, even happy, being servants? These are your Sambos. These are your Candace Owens, Larry Elders. These are the people that will fight. These are the people, when you start talking about white racism, they start talking about black on black crime. These are the people, when you start talking about Amber Geiger shooting that black man, they start talking about how black women don't listen to nobody, how black women is unruly. When you start talking about racism, they start talking about white, black racism. They will find anything to protect their master. See, the Sambo is the guy that's, when master say he's sick, he says, we sick, boss. This is your Sambo. You have to understand how to properly apply these terms. See, the Coon, although he often worked as a servant, was not happy with his status. So how can Candace Owens, ABL, and them be Coons? They happy with their status. So I'm telling you, you're using Coon wrong. Who you're calling a Coon is a Sambo. See, the Coon, although he worked as a servant, was not happy with his status. He was simply too lazy or too cynical to attempt to change his lowly position. Also, by the 1900s, Sambo was identified as older, docile blacks who accepted Jim Crow laws and etiquette. Just do everything right. Just go to school. I don't associate with Pookies and Ray Ray. I associate with decent blacks. I go to decent colleges. The black woman is too loud and too aggressive, so I go get with other women of other cultures, white women preferably. Without saying it, the white man did everything right. This is your Sambo. See, stated differently, the Coon was a Sambo going bad. The prototypical Coon movie was Step and Fetch It. So, before his death, the Coon developed into the most blatantly degrading of all black stereotypes. The pure Coons emerged as a no-account nigger. Now, y'all gotta be careful when you hear that. When they say no-account nigger. And Moses, come in on this one. See, a no-account nigger represents the anti-system nigger. The one that's the problem. See, the Coon is the problem. If you notice, they don't have a problem with Sambo. Sambo is a good guy. Because Sambo is what do they call it? What they call it when you fix a cat or a dog? Sambo is broken. You know,
neutered.
Sambo is neutered. He has no nuts. He does whatever his master tells him to do. He says, we sick, boss. I cannot understand why are we trying to be equal to the dominance when we are the original. Well, this is why I'm doing the stream, Jabari Shalom. I gotta teach. I'm answering that question in this stream. We're trying to be equal to them because we're trained to be Sambos, to go along. See, Sambo behavior is when we watch Tamir Rice get shot and do nothing and make excuse. And then Coon behavior is when we watch Tamir Rice and get shot, know we should do something, but we too lazy to do something about it. We lay idle and we do nothing. We lay unreliable. We lay lazy. We behave like those unreliable. We know that there's a problem, but we're not willing to take the chances to do things to make the change. So the Sambos are saying Tamir Rice shouldn't have been out there with a gun and he deserved it. The Coons are saying, fuck the white man. The white man is the devil. But when we say let's take up arms and move, nobody does nothing. That's the Coon. Come on in, Moses. This is your Coon. So Moses might have got up or something. The slave registered his protest against slavery by running away. And when that was not possible, by slowing work, doing shoddy work, destroying work tools, and faking illnesses. Slave master attributes the slave's poor work to performance, to shiftlessness, stupidity, desire for freedom, and genetic deficiencies. See, you got to understand, you guys have to understand when we're reading these things, the difference between the difference between the Coon and the Sambo. At the beginning of the 1900s, many whites supported the implementation of Jim Crow and etiquette. They believed that blacks were genetically, therefore permanently inferior to whites. Blacks were, they argued, hedonistic children, irresponsible, and left to their own plans, destined for idleness, or worse. It was not uncommon, this is the most important part of the live stream. It was not uncommon to distinguish between niggers, coons and bucks, and Negroes, Toms, Sambos, and Mammies. And they preferred the latter. So what you need to understand is a coon is the aggressive nigga in the street. He's not, who you call a coon is not a coon. They are Negroes, deaf to the Negro. The Mammies, the one that want to be all they can be. And tell you, these are the ones that tell you, stop talking about history. Stop worrying about history. That was a long time ago. Let it go. Move on. Move on into the future. Get you this white. It's okay to get a white woman. It's okay. It's okay to stand to be a black conservative, despite all the racial oppression that we've been through these people. It's okay to stand side by side with them, and all you do is make videos and criticize coons and bucks. Because I'm a Sambo, I'm an accepted Negro. I'm not lazy because the white man said I'm not lazy. I'm sorry. Because I'm not lazy. See, you there, Brother Moses? Y'all know, hold on. He might have got knocked off. Let me see. Let me see something real quick. Yeah, he got knocked off. Yeah, I'm about to bring it home though. So, you know, these are the things that we actually got to pay attention to. And it's vital that we actually get this information and understand the difference between the Coon, Leo Dunson, Brandon Tatum. Understand the difference between the Coon and the Sambo. You know, it's very important because we know how to properly apply things and we had a proper strategy as to how we should be moving. I wanted to do this again because me and Moses, we did this months back, and it's necessary. So now that you guys can go and y'all can go out, y'all can use Coon in its proper term. Y'all can use Sambo in its proper term. I got more coming probably tomorrow or Saturday night. I'm gonna do another stream that really breaks down what we've been through in history. I want to get into the judicial system in Texas. I'm confused at what and why they hated us. Yeah, plastered us on everything. Well, they needed us. They needed us to build their empire, their infrastructure. They needed our culture. See what they did, I'm Aries. They took our culture and they became us and made us become them. So now we perpetuate the same bastardly behaviors on each other that they did to us. And we've lost all sense of culture, and I'm going to prove it to you. Matter of fact, let me share my screen one more time. I'll read something from the great Dr. John Henry Clark that I had earlier. To control a people, you must first control what they think about themselves and how they regard their history and culture. And when your conqueror makes you ashamed of your culture and your history, he needs no prison walls and no chains to hold you. Now, what does that mean? That means that the white man knows what he's done to you, but when we riot, we won't go over there on his side and riot. We won't talk bad to that white man like that, but we'll talk bad to each other. We'll beat up on each other. We'll disrespect each other. We'll call each other out. We won't work with each other. We, with all the things that we complain about white people, we still rather live in a suburbs and live next to them, because to control the people, you must control what they think about themselves, regard and how they regard their history. How many people you hear today? How many people here you hear today say, "Man, fuck our history. That's a long time ago. It's time to move forward." They don't even respect it. But no other group that you'll ever hear talk like that. Because you answer to such stupid words like Negro and colored and black, you have no nationality. The name of a people must relate to them instantaneously, to the land, history, and culture. Anytime you call a people, name a people, and fail to relate them back to land, history, and culture, you have called them out of their names. This is the great Dr. John Henry Clark. And I'll give you one last one before Moses brings us home. This is real important, Kenny Conjo. Racists will always call you racist when you identify their racism. To love yourself now is a form of racism. We are the only people who are criticized for loving ourselves, and white people think when you love yourself, you hate them. No. When I love myself, they become irrelevant to me. That's powerful. Brother Moses, you back, Brother Moses? Yeah, he might be experiencing some technical difficulties. Yeah, he experiencing some technical difficulties. So, this concludes. Hold on for a second. He back. Yeah, you back, Brother Moses?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you good.
Man, whole computer shut down, man. Every time we get into a good one, man, it always happens. My technology is bugged or something, man. I expect them to do it just like I expect to eventually be kicked off the platform because I be dropping bars. Hey,
yeah,
man, I want to bring it on home if it's my turn yet. We good?
yeah, bring us home. Bring us home.
Man, this conversation is much needed. We got to look into the subtle nuances that define us as our character, as our identity, as our culture. The things that have always kept us together, our love, our value system, our shared experiences. These are the things that are constantly under attack. They're depicted in movies and film, in books, education system. They're depicted on all facets of where we operate. So not just at our homes, not just in our workspaces, not just in our churches and synagogues, not just in our communities, but every facet of where we operate. And in many cases, it's done so from a lens of slander. And that lens of slander goes beyond just a eugenic society and their programming. It goes beyond just saying, well, the media is doing it. Calling it white supremacy is not just enough. We have a greater responsibility to continue to educate each other, to hold each other up, to hold each other accountable, but to be that power and to be that voice that we need for each other. And so hopefully some of those images recreate that energy inside of you. It allows you to examine yourself and look at some of your Sambo moments, look at some of your Coon moments, and to be proud of some of your Coon moments, and to re-examine some of those Sambo moments where you could have a good learning from it and say, you know what, I was right when in my attempt, I was right in my attention, but maybe I went about it the wrong way. And so maybe that information that was presented today allows you to challenge even that part of yourself. Maybe you could see yourself in some of these cartoon characters or in some of these stories as being the first to try something, and so that's bold. Or maybe you can't see yourself being the first to try something, and don't be afraid because you see the slander, you see those things. But don't let the fear cripple you. Don't let the conditions that are currently up against us, don't let the war that we're fighting against be the reason why you don't exceed whatever expectation these other folks would have set for you. Um, Brother George, man, peace and black power to you, man. It's always an honor to bring this information out and push it forward. Um, and as always, just call me, man, whenever you need me, bro. I'm always willing to go live.
I want everybody to understand something. When you see a brother like Brother Moses, my cousin Larry, who works for the Johnny Cochran firm. Um, uh, when you see people, when you see these type of brothers, I want y'all to understand something. O'Shea Duke Jackson, very educated brothers, but they still black first. They went into the belly of the beast. They got education, and they never forgot who they are. They never forgot the mission. Brothers like a cerulean go into the military and come out still with a black first ideology and thought process, as opposed to a lot of our other people that's talented. They go and they become Negroes. They become Toms and Mammies. They lose their identity. So nobody can't tell me that when I see a brother Moses or my cousin Larry or O'Shea or so many countless brothers I know that got degrees and education and come out, they marry black women. They live in black communities. They still fight for black people. Countless of them. So it's bullcrap. They don't. Their vernacular is not like white people. They don't walk with the ass tight and so judgmental towards their people. They don't look at their people through the same stereotypical lens that the dominant society. They don't look at their people through a Sambo lens or a Mammy lens or a Tom lens. So when I break this down, you have to understand, Sam MacD. I'm setting up something where people can support me soon. I'm learning how to do this, but I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. That's why I always ask you guys to, if you on Twitter, post these videos to Twitter, post them to your Facebook, because we got to get I got to get to 1,000 subscribers where I can monetize and start, I guess, do it the way everybody else is doing it. And so I'm trying to get it to 1,000 subscribers. But we teaching this information. Not a lot of people don't show up. If I had to put it in the title, "Fuck these niggas," it'd be 200 people in here. But that's not my mission. That's not what I came to YouTube for. So I always collab with brothers like Moses and them, educated black men that went and got the education. They got the proper paperwork, but they also black first, and they know how to talk to their people. So we got to understand psychologically uh, what this dominant society has done to us mentally, and understand the war. Yeah, Cash App. Yeah, I'm gonna look into that, brother Sam. I'm gonna check that out. But a lot of times, man, brother Sam, I don't even do this for the money. I do it for the love of the people, because I love my people more than they hate themselves. Like, for real, I do this shit for the love. But everybody, I'm gonna set up, I guess, a Cash App. I get somebody to show me how to do it. You know, show me how to do it. But I take my time and put together presentations and do it because I like to teach. I like to bring this information to the people. But I got to get it to 1,000 subscribers. But we got to look at how we're affected psychologically. And I want y'all to remember something before I go. In warfare, understand how everything that we complain about, how does that affect white people psychologically? How has the European education system affected white people? How has their institutions and their job markets affected white people as to how they view us? So in war, you'll understand that the white man, even though he don't know it, is just as programmed as you are. He's calling you nigger, but he's getting that same immunization shot you get. He's calling you nigger, but he got diabetes, high blood pressure, high blood pressure, congestive heart failure, erectile dysfunction, just like you do. He's working in that refinery just like you do, but he still sees you as a nigger because the conditioning and these institutions has conditioned him to believe that he's greater than you. So he's being used as a pawn and don't know it. Millions of them are dying every day of opioids and these wars and everything, because the dominant society has conditioned them to believe that they are part of something that don't exist. That don't exist. So as bad as we think we got it, you know, they beat us and raped us and destroyed us for 400 years, and we still here. Look at all the things we created. Look at all the things that we created under the systems that we was under. We still was able to flourish. Look at what they're going through now. So remember, I love my people more than they hate themselves. And I pray to the universal creator most high that these words are enough to inspire you. These words are enough to make you look at yourself in the mirror and make change. These words are enough to make you look at your children and know you have to make change. I hope that when you came here for information, and when you leave here greater than what you was before you came. You leave here edified. I hope that you share this information on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook. The 2 videos that I did earlier today with Vlad TV, and the one video that I made earlier this morning about the educated Negro. I hope that everybody that sees this video that's on now, go to that video right now, the educated Negro, and share it. Please Share that on Facebook. Share it on your Instagram channels. Share it on your Twitter. Share that video, The Educated Negro. It's very imperative that we get that information out to the people. I don't get paid for this. I do it for the love of the people. For the love of the people. Go to my channel and get that video that I made this morning, The Educated Negro, and share it. So remember, I love y'all. To the next time. Peace. Man.